Hello and welcome to the Visionary Chronicles. Appreciate you being with me today. And today we're going to talk a little bit further on the book that I just released, The Visionary Leader, The Success Principles of the World's Greatest Visionaries. And before we dive into today's episode, if I could, I wanted to thank those that supported the launch of the book that allowed us to be the Amazon #1 bestseller in the business category list. So thank you for all of those that supported, either through ebook, hard copy, and we just recently released 2 months ago an audiobook. So we've got a lot of people that have downloaded the audiobook. So again, I wanted to thank you for supporting the launch of the book and the privilege of being a #1 bestseller on Amazon. But I will say the thing I talk about the most is how you've applied what I've written in the book and hearing that from you. And I've had many stories of those that have already applied some of the principles that visionary leaders I've outlined in the book have done through their personal or professional life. So again, thank you. Thank you to those that have supported the launch of the book and allowed us to be that #1 bestseller. And today we're going to talk on chapter 5. Chapter 5, which is called The Insight. And today's episode, I'm going to talk about decoding the future, how insight separates visionaries from leaders, from managers. It really does. When you talk about insight, it's really this future forecasting I talk about in a minute, of how these visionaries truly separate themselves from traditional leaders of the day. So again, welcome back to the Visionary Chronicles. In this, we're going to dig a little bit deeper into the most critical yet misunderstood capabilities of what I call transformative leadership. It's the power of insight. And it really takes a lot of focus, a lot of creativity, and the ability to translate your insight into vision that gets executed through the company and the team that you give back to them and achieve success through them. And I always start with a quote as well, and this one I felt is very appropriate for today. Vincent van Gogh is also an incredible visionary that I outline in the book, once said, "If one is master of one thing and understands one thing well, and has at the same time insight into an understanding of many things." Again, I'll repeat this because I had to do it myself a couple of times before I completely understood his meaning. But it's truly built around focus and insight. If one is master of one thing and understands one thing well, one has at the same time insight into an understanding of many things. So what he's talking about here is having a singular focus and the ability to translate that singular focus into many things in order to be successful. So this quote really perfectly captures what we're going to talk about today, how great visionary leaders leverage insight, not just as information, but as a powerful weapon or tool to create and lead generational companies. And again, this episode draws from chapter 5, The Visionary Leader. And if what we discussed today really resonates with you, I'd really encourage you to grab a copy. It's a deep dive into the framework I talk about today that separates market leaders from the followers. So let's get into it. Why is insight critical to visionaries? And I get that question a lot, whether it's through Liquid Mind, brands that I've been with personally, profiling those visionaries in the book. Many times leaders to visionaries will ask this question: why is insight critical to visionary success? And what you'll find with the traditional leader today, and I'm sure you see this across your companies, is the past and the present is what drives their future versus visionaries where future drives their present. So when we talk about decoding the future, here's the hard truth that you have to deal with as a leader. Is most leaders will observe trends, and we know what trends are. They're past and present. Visionary leaders dissect them and define the future. So your power as a visionary doesn't come from reacting to what's happening now. It comes from decoding what's coming next. You identify the DNA, the genetic code of change within recurring patterns. This isn't just pattern recognition, let's say. It's strategic foresight that will position your company to shape the future, not just respond to it. And when I'm talking to leaders of companies and brands, just so you know, and adapting this insight, this foresight, is that too many leaders of companies, through not wanting to take risk, and these are two compatible strategies that you have to have as a leader, is the ability for insight, but also the willingness to want to take risk in order to achieve that insight that gets translated to vision for your company. So what I've done is I put together a few principles of future-focused insight that you can adapt and utilize in your company, brand, whiteboarding, whatever it may be, that not a lot of people think about today. So here's 3 key principles in order for you to start defining your vision through foresight, insight. The first is strategic foresight over a tactical response. And what do I mean by that? Visionary leaders really consider the long-term implications of every decision that they make. They have a clear vision of where they're taking their company, their brand, their service, whatever it may be. And that vision is built on an understanding and a trajectory is just not a trend. It's something that's ongoing, something that hasn't been set in stone yet. Trends are set in stone, right? You can visually see it. What we're talking about here on dissecting the DNA of the future is something that you haven't seen yet. So that's why foresight and insight is so important. A tactical response is just that. It's a response. You respond to things. You react to things. You don't anticipate things. And the second is anticipating customer needs before they truly articulate them to you. And I'll use Steve Jobs as an example. Is he anticipated what the customers needed. And Henry Ford did this as well. When he was building his Model T, he said, if I asked my customer what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse. So great leaders invest time and resources into understanding global. And I say global. Understand, we're not talking North America. We're talking about global opportunities because you need the ability to scale your vision as a visionary leader through market research, and the dynamic nature of consumer behavior is different in each region across the world. So there's different opportunities. But you really need to understand the foundation of the opportunity that you have based on your insight in the vision of the company of where you want to take it in the future. They don't wait for customers to tell them what they need. They already know. And I've been at companies where they say, hey, let's go do a consumer focus group. And I said, why? They're not going to tell you what they need. They're going to tell you what they want. That's different. There's one that it's a response and a reaction mode and strategy versus insight, foresight, and vision. The third is that you need to have purpose-driven insight. Insight isn't only reactive. The most powerful leaders, those visionaries that you've heard of, and I outline in the book, align their insight with a clear purpose, an intent. This purpose-driven approach guides decision-making and creates really a magnetic, mobilizing sense of direction for your team, company, brand, and it's what builds what I call a passion inside of your company, a culture inside your company or brand. Think about the difference between a culture where they're anticipating the needs of their customers and pleasing those customers to make them more effective, more efficient, versus something that's an incremental improvement that they knew was coming and not surprised by. Well, when I was at Oakley, TaylorMade, and Adidas, I saw this firsthand. The leaders who dominated weren't just better at execution, they were better at seeing around corners. They knew what was coming. If we didn't know what was coming, we would not be leaders in our category. They understood that foresight is what separates market leaders from followers. It allows you to innovate ahead of the curve and really dominate your industry before others even see what's coming. And I go back to the story of Oakley. Jim Gennard didn't care what our competitors were doing. He just knew that if we had strategic foresight, insight, future casting, the culture that we had ingrained into our company and the passion he had, that people knew that whatever we put out there was going to dominate the market in our category. And by the way, I will put this out here for you as well. This is something I've also outlined in the book, The Visionary Brand, which is my first book, is that you don't always need to have a bestseller. There's too many companies that get caught up, and this many times is a commodity company thinks this way. It doesn't have to be a bestseller to have an impact as a brand. What you need is the ability for people to be looking at what you're doing and building a culture that's different. And you know where I'm going with this? It's think different. Whatever you do as a company brand, you need to be thinking different all the time. Take risks. No great brand, product, or service has ever been executed, commercialized in the marketplace without having first failed. Without first having the insight, the foresight, and the vision to know that what you're creating is not an incremental improvement, but something that's going to disrupt the market. So insight is really agile. It's another point I want to make here is that, let me be really clear first, that insight without agility is just information. Visionary insight is both sharp and responsive. Again, insight without agility is just information. Visionary insight is both sharp and responsive, meaning that you need to have what I call flexibility and adaptability. I always say you can have this switchback leadership to success, meaning that you've got a point in the destiny of your vision where you want to take the brand, company, and your team with you, but it isn't always a straight line. It could be not point to point, but rather like going down a mountain skiing, the switchback and forth. But eventually you hit your destination, which is the base of the mountain. It's very similar with visionary leadership. Is they never lose sight of where they're going, but there may be detours along the way, but they never change their destination. Visionary leaders use their insight to adjust strategies quickly in response to changing conditions or unforeseen obstacles. You can't anticipate everything out there, but you can have the foresight and the vision to know what your destiny is. They understand the importance of using calculated insights to validate concepts, identify opportunities, and address potential barriers to success. So the next question I always get is, well, what makes insight agile? How do I know that I'm sticking to my destination point? When I go off course, how do I get back on course? So I put together 3 points here on what makes insight agile. So the first is the blend of intuition and expertise. Visionary insight is born from sharp intuition combined with deep knowledge. And while these visionary leaders possess finely tuned instincts that allow them to perceive connections, others might overlook their insights are rooted in extensive study and understanding of their business that others may not do. So again, it's born from sharp intuition But they've also rooted their insight into extensive study and understanding of their business. So the context of having insight also is that understanding a great idea may not be a great idea for the company if it isn't rooted in strategy. It isn't rooted around who your brand is and who your culture is. So you need to make sure you get a blending of intuition along with expertise. You may have a person with great intuition and great ideas, but everything they're putting out there is not right for the brand or the company or product or service. So that's where agility comes in, as somebody that has the ability to blend intuition and their expertise. That's the beauty of it. It can blend in with your supply and demand curve. And the second is proactive analysis. What I mean by here is insightful leaders stay ahead of industry curves. They proactively analyze information about emerging technologies, market shifts, and competitive landscapes that are constantly moving out there. They just don't react to change. So again, I use the word react, respond, whatever it may be, but that's not in the context of foresight. You have to anticipate through foresight where your product, your brand is going, what the opportunities are on a global scale, set the vision and the execution steps through your team to ensure that it gets commercialized. So they don't react just to change, they anticipate it. And they position their companies for not just one hit wonder success, by the way, it's generational success. And again, I use Apple as an example a lot, but it's just a model of where you should be setting your vision. Apple had the balls on their supply and demand curve that on the top of their demand on a product to pull it off the market. Nobody does that. Everybody pulls product on the back end of the supply and demand curve so late adopters can have this product. That was Steve Jobs' brilliance because he knew he had an innovation pipeline of products that could carry them beyond this product that they're pulling off the shelf. Plus, it created excitement as to what's coming next. So, here's a little bit of tactical framework that I've used throughout my career and also through Liquid Mind, where we have one-to-one, what we call sessions with leaders of companies looking to set their future vision. And not a lot of companies think about this because it takes an intense amount of effort, it takes an intense amount of concentration and focus to do it. So by design, that's why they call us. They need to have an approach of how to consistently do this. And it isn't a one-time thing. It's something that's ingrained in the culture of your company that you do every single year. And what I call this tactical framework is, the first is what I call the SWOT plus approach. And what I mean by this is that visionary leaders conduct thorough competitive analysis. They're identifying weaknesses and strengths, opportunities and threats in the competitive landscape, but they don't stop there. So most traditional companies, when you say SWOT, strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats, that's where they stop. But if you want a SWOT plus approach, as we call it, it's liquid, it's fluid, you'll add scenario planning, creating multiple future scenarios based on different potential outcomes. I get it. It's a lot more challenging, but at the same time, it does give you the ability to test market your scenario. This exercise helps them really prepare for various possibilities and develop adaptable strategies for future scenarios. Meaning that, let's say that we have developed a product that we know is going to be an incremental update to what we currently have in the marketplace. But we know that there's something we could put into the marketplace that will disrupt. But the key to this is, and this is where scenario planning comes in, we've already done the SWOT analysis. We know that we can gain market share. We know we can disrupt the market. But we also need to understand that once this product hits the market, we will need to have had in our head what's going to be the next generation. Incremental is fine. Innovation's better. Disruption's the best. So again, this exercise really helps the leaders that we talk with Liquid Mind on our one-to-one scenarios really prepare for these possibilities and adaptable strategies for future scenarios. So they also seek insights from a variety of industries. By really understanding how different sectors are evolving, they can identify very quickly potential cross-industry innovations and apply them to their own context. This, what I call cross-pollination of ideas, where breakthrough innovation lives. And the second tactical framework that I use through Liquid Mind or the brands that I've been with is global perspective matters. Too many times I work with companies where there's this, what I call this shotgun approach or rifle approach. Many times shotgun, and most people say you don't want a shotgun approach. When we're talking about global perspective, it matters that you're going to have more of a shotgun approach than you will have on a rifle approach. Rifle approach would be North America, shotgun approach would be global. So visionary leaders understand the impact of international trends, economic shifts, geographical events in their industries. So they adapt their strategies and engage with industry ecosystems where they can bolt on, like an Apple, like a Google. These are ecosystems that these brands and companies have created. And they're forming strategic partnerships and alliances. Just had Google and Apple create an alliance with Gemini. That's what I'm talking about. This insight-driven collaborative enhances innovation, market reach, and overall competitiveness. Two heads are better than one, right? So they analyze demographic shifts and changes in consumer behavior. They don't ask the consumer what they want. They want to know what their behavior is. They observe. That's what you're looking at. It's fine to observe, but wrong to ask. They don't know. Have you ever been on one of these consumer surveys and you're talking to these people? Hey, what's the next footwear trend that you see? Can you imagine the answers? They're not footwear experts. Why are you taking their advice? It's fine if you say, hey, do you like this product? Do you not like this product? But you really need to understand consumer behavior. You need to understand how marathoners run and the issues that marathoners still have when they run with shoes, or sprinters, football players. As an example for footwear, you can use this in any industry. So understanding evolving demographics helps them anticipate shifts in market demand and really tailor their vision to meet future consumer needs as well. So the beauty of it is really understanding all these needs. And let's say that you do have a shoe that's going to correct 3 out of the 7 issues that the marathoner has. You've got 4 more that you can correct in the next incremental improvement, potentially change the shoe completely through a disruptive product. So they consider global economic trends, growth patterns, trade dynamics, market fluctuations, and this macroeconomic awareness that really informs their vision and their strategic planning as they move along. But I would say probably the most important thing is they consider societal and cultural dynamics. They're changing all the time. They anticipate shifts in values. These are intangibles, by the way. Cultural norms, ensuring that their vision resonates with the evolving mindset of their target demographic. So you need to also be careful. That's why I say global awareness, self-awareness. People talk about self-awareness. I'm talking about global awareness. Same thing. Be aware of how this product impacts those that are buying it in India versus Mexico versus the EU. So all of these different things matter. And the next that I have is insight is really collaborative. Here's something surprising to me early in my career, is that the smartest people in the room as far as person in the room, I find very quickly, isn't the leader, it's the room itself. These leaders with no humility, thinking they have all the answers and just giving directions, isn't really a true leader. Empowering teams is a key principle of visionary leadership success. By recognizing the importance of collective intelligence, leaders unlock insights they could never generate alone. But here's the caveat. All visionary leaders are humble. Every visionary leader, from Gandhi to Socrates to Martin Luther King to Abraham Lincoln, they were secure in their self-awareness enough to know that they needed help in executing their vision. So you should do the same. You can't accomplish this alone. And there's nothing more rewarding to the visionaries that I've outlined in the book as to shared credit through humility to those that helped you commercialize your product. And that's what Steve's number one success story was, looking at the faces of the employees as he released the Macintosh. That to him was his reward. So how do visionary leaders create this collaborative insight? I'll give you a couple points here. And there's really two. I could do a whole bunch here, but let's just start with two. One is transparent communication. They communicate insights openly with their teams. This open communication really builds trust. Think about it. If you've been in a room with leaders, you've been in a room with your manager, your boss, whoever it is, if there's open communication where you can express your opinions without being lambasted by your boss or anybody else in the room, that builds trust and ensures everyone understands the rationale behind strategic decisions. Now, you can disagree. That's fine. And I feel it's incumbent on the leader not to just discount his team's communications, their opinions, but rather to build a collaborative environment where people feel safe giving their opinion in the first place. The second is empowered contribution. They empower their teams to contribute insights and ideas, and really creates a collaborative environment where everybody's expertise is truly valued. And I think everybody feels that way. And some of the best ideas are never expressed verbally. And that's unfortunate, just because they feel it's a stupid idea. But I can tell you, every single great invention ever on our planet, every time a visionary stuck their neck out to say what they wanted to do, everybody thought they were crazy. So you've got company. And why Steve said, here's to the crazy ones. So this collective intelligence, as I call it, really amplifies the leader's vision. It really offers deeper understanding and real-time data that supplements what an individual couldn't gather alone. So you really need to have this collaborative insight. But it needs to be done through trust and humility. And the next, what I call visionary strategic weapon, is future casting. So many people will ask me when I talk about future casting, I feel it's so important. It's one of the most valuable tools that visionaries can have in their tool belt. And this is something used by visionary. It's also known as futurism or foresight thinking. And I put it in here in the book in more detail. I'll talk about it briefly here, but it's the method that anticipates and shapes future trends, opportunities, and challenges. It is a really proactive approach that allows leader to create a vision that is responsive to the present while anticipating and aligning with future developments, meaning that it's a transitional strategy. You set it backwards, meaning that you go to the future and you go back and adapt to the current present in order to adapt to the future, if that makes sense. So it is. That's exactly what future casting is. You see something, but you need a bridge. So again, this proactive approach allows the leader to create a vision that is responsive to the present while anticipating and aligning it with future developments. Future developments being your vision, by the way. So here's how it really works in practice. When I whiteboard this with leaders with Liquid Mind, the brand strategy firm that I have, the first is, let's just say how it works in practice is technology tracking. So visionary leaders closely follow technological advancements and innovations, but many find it frustrating. Frustrating from the, maybe you do as well. It's frustrating from the standpoint that things seem to change every day, if not every hour, every minute. And they assess potential impact of emerging technologies on their industry and business model, incorporating this understanding into their long-term vision. So that's technology tracking. So they understand the innovations, the advancements, and they assess the potential impact. And they say, I notice potential impact. That's, again, that switchback leadership. You say, hey, you can't anticipate everything else that's coming down the pipeline. All you can do is define what's currently available within your insight. Because your foresight is relative and your insight is relative to what you're doing, not what others are doing. And the second is expert collaboration. Beyond leveraging your team's expertise and frontline experiences, visionary leaders will collaborate with futurists or experts in foresight thinking. You may think this is the crystal ball. I affectionately put a crystal ball up on the whiteboard when I talk about this one, but really it's just someone who this is their job in the specific industry that you're working in or what you're looking to create. These professionals specialize in analyzing trends and making informed predictions about future developments, providing valuable insights that you can utilize in your strategy as you look to commercialize your visionary product, service, or brand. And so if we look at all that I've talked about here, and I think the last question that I get from leaders many times is, well, why does insight matter? It says, well, visionary leaders harness their insight through future casting and other forward-thinking practices to be proactive rather than reactive. So how do you do that? You do it through insight, and that's why it matters, and it's so important. And why I can talk about it intelligently is that if I have not worked with great visionaries, which I have, fortunately, over my career, and visionary brands, by the way, that everybody's familiar with, I've also profiled them in my book. And this is all true. This forward-thinking approach isn't just one methodology, it's a cornerstone of what I love, this word, is transformative leadership. If you want to be transformative, you need to have the ability to understand not just vision, but foresight, insight, but also how to execute that strategy in the present day into the future. So look into the future, build back, bridge that, and execute that vision through foresight. So again, by anticipating change rather than reacting to it, you just don't safeguard your organization's future, your company's future, your product's future. You shape it. And this is how you'll build legacies, not just companies. I talk many times about the innovation pipeline. And the innovation pipeline is really having product that you can serve for 10 years, a decade. And a great example of this is Sony Walkman, right? It sold it for 20 years, 100, 200 million units, whatever the number finally ended up to be, but they really had no innovation pipeline. It was a one-hit wonder they made a ton of money on. But as soon as they were at the end of their wave, they had nothing. So they lost their edge in the marketplace rather than continuing to surf it. So that's what I'm talking about with this pipeline, that you need to make sure that you have it in your business. So what does this practical execution look like? One is customer empathy, number one. These leaders cultivate deep empathy for their customers. Steve said, simple is sophisticated. If you have to read the instructions and how to set it up, it's too damn difficult. How do you set up the Apple computer? He said 1, 2, 3. Take it out of the box, plug it in, hit the power button. That's 3. So he had a tremendous amount of empathy for his customers and what he was creating. Just because you're an engineer doesn't mean that everybody's an engineer. Have empathy for who you're selling product to. So these leaders cultivate deep empathy for their customers, using it to refine product, your services, or overall customer experiences. Number two is they have diverse perspectives. They really recognize the value of diverse perspectives and ideas, encouraging idea generation to uncover insights that drive innovation, and truly foster a culture of creativity within their brands. That's why I love the ideation sessions that we create with Liquid Mind, ones that we've also done with Oakley, TaylorMade, Adidas, all the brands that I've been with. They've got a great ideation strategy, and they carry it out continually, year after year. But guess what? One thing that they don't do is they don't look at the competition to get ideas. Where do they go? They look for adaptable technologies they can put in their products that allow them to become generational. And the last here is behavioral observation. That's what I talk about with adaptable technologies, is that visionary leaders pay close attention to customer behavior. They don't ask the customer, they observe. Just go out to the mall and observe. I mean, if you're a footwear company, don't ask them what they think of this new color you're creating. They don't know. You want to ask them, hey, what are some of the pain points? What if questions? And so by understanding and changing preferences and expectations, they can align their company with evolving consumer needs. And that's super important. So how this all kind of comes together is just kind of, here's your execution framework. Predict, refine, and execute. First, predict. Use your insight to decode what's coming. Second is refine, continuously adjust based on new data and team intelligence. And the third point is execute. Move with conviction and agility. The leaders, I'll take it, my last point here before I close, is that the leaders who fail are ones who either predict without executing or executing without predicting. You need both. You need insight paired with action. Again, I'll say leaders, the leaders who fail are the ones who either predict without executing or execute without predicting. So make sure you need both of these. So in closing, here's my challenge to you today. Where are you operating from observation instead of insight? Lock yourself in a room for an hour a day and gain insight. Uninterrupted insight. Future casting. Foresight. Second question is, what are you reacting? Where are you reacting instead of predicting? Third is, where could you be leveraging your team's collective intelligence more effectively? The answer to these questions, I can tell you, will determine whether you're managing your business or leading it into the future. And remember, failures aren't setbacks. They're learning opportunities. Visionary leaders analyze setbacks and use them to refine strategies, products, or processes for future success. That's the mindset shift that changes everything. So thank you for being with me today on the Visionary Chronicles. As I said, I always appreciate your time. And if this episode resonated with you, I'd encourage you to grab a copy of The Visionary Leader, The Success Principles of the World's Greatest Leaders. It's available now wherever books are sold. And it's a perfect companion if you're looking to reignite your purpose, which I know many leaders are looking at today, or lead with more clarity in this really super complex world. And as a thank you to my loyal podcast listeners and the visionary community we're building, you can grab an ebook version for $1.99 on Amazon. And we're doing constant giveaways of hard copy books, now audio books. We're going to be doing giveaways on our podcast. We'll give you links to enter that contest for free audiobooks and also hard copy books. And we want to give those to as many leaders as possible and extend our reach. This book is really a culmination of decades of research, experiences, real world insights of brands that I've been with, companies that I work with at Liquid Mind, and to what makes leaders like Steve Jobs, Leonardo da Vinci, Elon Musk truly visionary. And once you've read it, if you could leave an honest review on Amazon, that's always appreciated. And again, your support means the world to me. And your purchase goes a long way in helping us to spread the vision even further. And only through you does that happen. I can't do it. And if you've read the book, and if you would like to share this with others, you can do hashtag Visionary Chronicles, hashtag the Visionary Leader. And or you can reach out directly to me at Brian, B-R-Y-A-N, at liquidmindsite.com. That's liquidmindsite.com. And I'm happy to answer your questions. And I'm always curious as to see how you applied what I put in the Visionary brand or the Visionary Leader. I read every single one, and I'll feature some of those on of the best insights in upcoming episodes as well. I'll put quotes in there. So, well, again, thank you for joining me on the Visionary Chronicles, where the future is created by those bold enough to shape it. Until next time, keep innovating, keep leading, keep shaping the future. Thank you for continued support, and I look forward to hearing from you soon. As always, stay true, stay authentic, be different, and be great, but enjoy the journey along the way.